Uh, Hi everyone. The title of my talk is What to Say When They Tell You Perl Sucks, or Debunking Perl Myths. Who am I? My name is Pritesh Ugrankar. I'm from India, Bangalore. I've mostly worked in storage domain. I'm a intermittent Perl user. I'm currently open to work. The first time I used Perl was in late 2012. I used it to add remove colons from WWNs. WWNs, by the way, are how hosts and storage arrays communicate with each other over FC Fabric. I've been using Perl intermittently ever since for automation, and most recently I used it in November 2020 to automate storage array reports and alerts. The first few scripts I wrote were about 20 to 30 lines, mostly regex, no modules, no subroutine. Later or recently, it's been about 200 to 300 lines, use subroutine and lots of modules. Uh, so the thing is, there are a lot of slides in this talk, so I'll just mention a gist of what's in the slide and keep going, and I'd request you to go through the slides at your own leisure later. The next point is why this topic. First of all, online there were a lot of articles, YouTube videos that were constantly dissing Perl and saying it's a horrible language, it's unreadable, and pointed out issues and bugs. Which, when I tried, I found that most of the issues or bugs they mentioned were either mitigated, removed, or simply didn't exist. Offline, some of my friends wondered why I use Perl and not some other language. The last straw, though, was a YouTube video with the words Perl sucks in the thumbnail. By that time, I had had enough, so I published a LinkedIn article debunking Perl myths, and I received a lot of positive comments. One of which was from Matthew Persico, who suggested I present it in this conference, and he also suggested the title. So, just want to take the opportunity to thank Matthew for his encouragement and suggestion of the title. So, what to say when they tell you Perl sucks? This is what has worked for me. I asked them to give me a specific example or specific features of Perl that they have issues with, and most of them won't be able to give the specific because they haven't even tried the language. Some will give specific examples or reasons, and I try to address those if possible. Some will have preconceived notions or won't even know that Perl can do most of the stuff their language can, and at times do it better. So I show them modules features comparable to their language. Then I show them, why I like Perl, and I ask them if their better than Perl language has those features. So this presentation will take a similar route. First, it will address the most popular myths about Perl. Then it will show matching features or modules with other similar languages, and then it shows some features of Perl, which, in my very limited understanding, are either unique to Perl or fantastic, or both. So the most often what I hear about is Perl is old and are they even releasing newer versions? So Perl 5.34 was released this May 20th. The last time I heard this argument was from a friend. It was in December 2020, and we had Perl 5.32 back then. Important point is a new Perl version is released every year, and not many folks know that. The next point I keep hearing that it's a pain to install Perl, uh, which is again an absolute lie because there are two Windows specific Perl distributions out there, Active Perl and Strawberry Perl. And I've used Strawberry Perl myself, and it comes loaded with all the Perl modules that I need and more. If you need something, you can use cpenm from Windows command line, just like how you use it on Unix or Linux. The good thing is Strawberry Perl comes in three flavors, an exe that you can install from, or a zipped version you can unzip and start using, so you don't need any admin access, and you can install multiple versions of Perl in the same system. There's also a portable version of Perl, Strawberry Perl, that you can run off from a USB. So just wanted to take this opportunity to give a big shout out to the Strawberry Perl developers. Just want to thank them for creating, releasing, and maintaining such a high quality distribution. The next thing I hear about is Perl has all this cryptic syntax. This is more of a personal preference because I really like dollar for scalars, at for arrays, and percentage for hashes. For example, it's the type of brackets that indicate if I want a slice of an array or a hash. So if I am using square brackets, it tells me that I need a slice of an array versus if I'm using the curly brackets, I need a slice of a hash. So that itself makes pretty clear what the stuff is all about. I also like a bracket for scopes. I like semicolon for statement completion, and I like Perl's white space ignorance, because then a tab or space does not change scope, and I'd rather trace curlies than adjust tab spaces to troubleshoot code. Also, adding testing the code line by line is really easy with Perl. Also, I don't mind the use of arrow instead of a dot. And yeah, I love strict and warnings because I added them to an existing script which I didn't have them. And that actually helped me fix a lot of issues. And I also like how my R and such variables provide granular scope control. So the next thing I hear is nested data structures are either not possible or they are a pain in Perl. The first part is, of course, an outright lie. Yes, of course, you can have nested data structures in Perl. And as for ease of writing them, it depends. Whenever I've had a data structure that I was trying to write and that was way too deeply nested, I was mostly doing something wrong, and there was an easier way to do it. Also, the Perl documentation, you can find the links here. It's really fantastic about data structures or nested data structures. So I just go through it and it takes care of most of the needs. One can also use the built-in data dumper module or the installable data printer module to visualize a deeply nested data structure, and that way one doesn't have to guess. So here's an example. So in this slide, it's a nested array of hash of hashes, and the data dumper output is shown here on the top, and the data printer output is shown here at the bottom. Notice the coloring that you see in data printer comes by default, but again, it's customizable. But in either case, it actually gives you a nice view of what the data structure actually contains. The next thing, and this I've heard more often than not, is Perl regex is really unreadable. Well, the problem is regex by nature itself is not particularly readable, and it's not even a core feature of many languages, but not Perl, because there's a Perl compatible regular expressions library, PCRE, which is inspired by Perl, as the name suggests, and every other programming language tries to implement it. But when it comes to regex, Perl is just the gold standard. Also, what I really love about Perl is writing regex has been enhanced a lot. I can use the X modifier that allows spaces and comments in the regex, as we'll see in a later slide, or the QR operator, which again we'll see in the same slide. Or there is use RE strict pragma that helps prevent regex gotchas. And then there is a regex debugger module, which shows how the regex actually executes. So that takes care of that. Now, the next point is Perl lacks function signatures. Well, that's wrong, because function signatures were introduced way back in Perl 5.20. And there is a fantastic talk by Mark Gartner. Again, the link is here, that speaks about function signatures in Perl at length. You can also use anonymous hashes while calling the subroutine, and you can get a somewhat similar functionality as shown in the next slide, or you can use prototypes. So in this slide, there is a function called getInfo, and the first time I call it with 2 arguments, then with 1 argument, and then with 0 arguments. And if I have set up the parameters correctly, I'll get the desired output the way I want. Now, the next thing that often comes up when I'm discussing it with my friend is, my language has this. How about Perl? So they say their language has a virtual environment where they can install different versions of Perl, different versions of their language. And I tell them about plenv and Perl brew that allow you to do the same, and you don't even need sudo access. And then they talk about a central repo for packages, and that's when I gently stop them and I tell them, whatever language they have, their central repository wasn't surely up there before Perl, because CPAN has been a unique feature of Perl since ages. When it comes to testing tools, the Perl community is quite particular about it, and it strongly encourages testing. And given here are some of the links of some of the testing modules, and there is also a tutorial on testing up there on CPAN, so the link is given here. Also, the modules are regularly updated, and that link is given here too. The next 3 points are basically about different modules that I've spoken with my friends about. One of them was sending email over SSL or TLS. Another one, and this is my favorite one, is SSHing into Unix or Linux devices or storage arrays. And NetSSH2 takes care of that. And there is even a control CLI module that's sort of a wrapper around it. And NetSSH2 comes pre-installed with Strawberry Perl. Also, sometimes you want to know if there is some module to create Excel reports. And one of the amazing modules that Perl has is Excel Writer XLSX. Then they talk about this cool feature that lets them do things with lists with just one line of code. And of course, Perl has had map and grep since forever, using which we can transform a list or filter a list. But the thing is, Perl community prefers clarity over cleverness. Then one more thing they keep saying, I really don't know why they really like it, but they say their language has a way of writing anonymous functions in one line. Well, Perl has anonymous functions since quite a while, and you can either write it in one line or multiple line, and it's just far more powerful. Now, code completion aware editors, that's one thing where I find Komodo Edit or IDE are fantastic. And there is another one that's come up recently called Tab9, and it works with VS Code, Vim, and many others. As far as interacting with databases, there are database modules like DBDPG, also similar available for MySQL, Oracle, etc. And then there is DBIX class. Now, when it comes to web development frameworks, Perl has had Dancer, Mojiolicious, and Catalyst, and these are just super cool frameworks. I haven't tried them, but from what I've read, they are really amazing. When it comes to object-oriented programming, Perl's native way of doing it might be slightly clunky, but if you take a look at Moo, and few other frameworks, they are really fabulous. And there is a new object-oriented framework coming up for Perl. For parallel processing, Perl has Parallel Fork Manager, and there is also something called as Mini Core Engine that's got MCE Map, MCE Grep, MCE Loop, and a couple other more. So that takes care of that. Now, when it comes to Unicode, from my personal experience, Perl was the only language that handled UTF-16 LE Unicode like a boss. No other scripting language I tried could handle it. The fun fact is the CLI documentation stated that passing the output through Perl on Windows could be buggy, but they didn't know about Perl Monks, which I went to, and the folks there helped me out. Which brings me to, sometimes when they have a question, where do I go to ask questions? I tell them Perl Monks. Because the site might be quite unassuming in its appearance, but it's just a fantastic place, quite resourceful. The monks there, the forum members are super helpful. The answers are really high quality, and at times they've helped me with code snippets that I could use or modify. Not to mention, the code snippets follow best practices and will often be interspersed with light bulb moments. And then there's Stack Overflow and Reddit, and you can get help there too. When it comes about learning resources, there are loads of high quality Perl books, the O'Reilly Perl book series, Learning Perl, Intermediate Perl, Advanced Perl, Programming Perl, etc. There's a new version of Learning Perl that is scheduled to release this August. My personal favorite, though, is Beginning Perl by Curtis Howard Pope, because even I just went halfway through this book and I was able to automate a lot of stuff at work. Yeah, it was released in September 2012, but it's extremely resourceful and it's still applicable to even 5 or 34. So I really owe a lot to this book. As far as online tutorials are concerned, I found Gabo's tutorials quite rich in content. I've enrolled for 3 of his courses, and I just find that the material is fantastic. The last but not the least is, when they say Perl is dead, nobody's using it. Why are you using it? Well, I tell them that Perl is one of the top 10 well-paid languages per recent survey done by Tunga, Dice, and Stack Overflow. And Perl is still quite actively used for many tasks. So what I've given below are snippets of some of the comments for the same video that I spoke about earlier. And if you can see the comments, it says, Perl is still being actively used to crunch 50 GB plus CSV files. It's used in DevOps, finance and trading, and the devs with Perl skill are still in demand. So seems quite alive and kicking for a dead language. Now that we've spoken about, feature to feature comparison, I show them stuff that I like about Perl. Now, most of you are experienced folks, so you might not really find this amazing, but I really find this amazing. So the range operator is something I really like. Especially if you see the last 2 examples, I can sort of generate a sequence by just putting the dots in between them, and that's helped me to automate some stuff at work, because you have a starting device, you have an ending device, and it needs to create the stuff between those. So that's where it was helpful. the state variable that remembers its state and lets me do some stuff. So this is just a example code, but again, I've used state variable at so many places, and it is just so practical, and it's quite clever. The next thing I like about Perl is references. So the issue was the value of Perl lists and hashes were limited to being a scalar value. So what Perl actually did, and why I love Perl, one of the reasons is it took its limitation and transformed it into something that's really awesome and powerful. So I can create named references like how it's shown here in the slide, which can be accessed like this. And here's the newer syntax. Or similarly, I can create it for hashes, and it can be accessed like this. Another way to declare references is anonymous reference, wherein you don't need either the @ or the hash symbol. And instead of the usual brackets, you use square brackets for arrays and curlies for hashes. Using the concepts above, we can create nested data structures such as array of arrays, hashes of hashes, array of hashes, and stuff like that. And that's really powerful. And we can also have references to subroutines, and one of the uses is for creation of closures. The next thing I like about Perl is, of course, map and grep. So while other languages have it, I really love the way Perl lets me use it. So this is just a glimpse of why it can be used. So in this example, I'm using a grep to sort of filter out the unwanted content and push what I want into a list. In the next example, it's just doing some addition and squares on numbers. But the thing is, I can call a function right from within the map sequence. So that's what I like about Perl. Again, ConfigTiming module is something that lets me create a params file, and then I can call it from separate scripts like this. So if I need to do any changes, I just do it to the params file. And the QR operator and the X modifier, as I spoke earlier, look how beautiful it is. It just lets me write it in such a clear manner. And this is actually from a working code that I've written. And the good thing is I can modify it at one place and I can keep calling it from multiple places. I just don't need to do it again and again. The next thing I like about Perl is dispatch tables. Like the example shown here, there are only 3 events that are there in this dispatch table. But imagine if you had more functions, more things to do. The dispatch tables really make it, that simple and easy. This is perhaps the most defining feature of Perl is devel Prof, which is a fabulous source code profiler. I've used it myself, and it actually helped me fix slowness in a script. So this shows, how it can be called, and it generates an HTML file, and the resulting HTML file has a flame graph, and it's got top 15 subroutine and source code. Line by line sort of timeline of the source code as to how much time it consumes. So what basically it is this is basically just a summary of whatever I said. So Perl is quite a powerful general purpose language, and to not use such a fantastic language based on hearsay is just not that. So what I tell them is use it, see it if you like it, because no matter whether they like it or not, it's a powerful, versatile tool in the toolkit. Any questions? Whoops, we have already.
Pritesh.
Yep.
Hey, that was cool. I like that. That is straight and to the point. I'll send you a couple things I noticed. I'll talk about them. I'll send you a couple things, but that was really, really good. Very
Thank you.
Impressed.
Thank you.
You got an email address here? I'll find it in there. I'll find LinkedIn. Never mind.
Sure. Well, if nobody has any further questions, I'd just like to thank you for taking time to attend this session and listening to me. I know most of the stuff that I stated here you might have heard, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you guys, because you all have been using Perl, and so have I. So thanks.
Hey,
Thank you.
I'd love to throw in my thanks to you also. Really
Thank
good, very quick overview. One question for you. Of the people you've talked with that have been critical of Perl, what kind of what's the most common pattern you see that you recognize, that you have seen, the common dismissal or critique, or is it readability, or what is that you've heard the most in your line of work or experience?
Well, this is going to sound slightly opinionated, but the point is, most of the folks that have spoken with me about, why am I using Perl, very few of them had certain points to discuss. Most of them hadn't even used Perl, and whatever language they said they liked was something that they liked in theory. So by the time I had about 4 or 5 scripts already written, they were still trying to write scripts in the language of their choice, which was, I'm not dissing the language, but because you asked, I'm just saying it. The language that they liked was Python. And for some reason, they always kept dissing Python, kept dissing Perl and saying Python is a better choice. Then one of those guys also came to me and told me, hey, you know what? Python is used a lot in data science and machine learning. I told him, dude, if I learn Python, that doesn't make me a master in machine learning or data science. It's like, saying that I know Excel, so that makes me a fantastic finance guy. No, it doesn't. I'm just a guy who knows Excel well, isn't it? So I hope that answers your question, unless you're looking for something else specific.
Yeah, it answers an interesting question, though I was more thinking if you had an idea of the amount of people, like, is it per people, what kind of critique is the most common critique you hear? That's what I was trying to ask.
The common critique I hear is the one where they say, I've heard Perl is dead. Why are you still using it? That's the common critique I've heard.
Okay, cool. When I've been talking with people about Perl, it is kind of the same, actually, here in where I live in Norway. When I answer them, just to add to your point here, when I answer them, it's usually, well, that there's a lot going on. Are you aware that there's a lot going on? The version numbers, you made a point of that, but it's only. Let's see if I remember my point. The critique about not seeing things might be a problem in that they're not looking for it.
Right.
And telling them that there are plenty of activities out there if you are interested in actually getting informed, and then pointing out Perl Mongers, Perl Monks, different YouTube channels, Stack Overflow, RC channels. There is a lot of stuff going on, and there's also a way to make a mark. You don't become, in the Perl community, it's a small community, but we punch up above our weight, mostly because we have a lot of history that we can use every day that is battle proven, so to speak.
Yeah. And Perl is also used in GitHub, which everyone uses, but no one wants to say that GitHub uses Perl. There's a lot of binding stuff for GitHub that is written in Perl. People don't want to talk about it, which is, I don't know. It's like I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think it's really great what you've been doing. So keep on. And one pattern which I would like to finish on, and then I'll shut up and let somebody else add to this. That is, I've taken myself to make sure that when I hear somebody make a slight or make fun of the language or the community, that they actually hear an opposition, because it's very easy to let people just slide and say it's okay, like, okay, it's their opinion, moving on. But they might continue saying things or having a faulty impression or a mistaken opinion. As long as they don't hear any opposition, they don't get the opportunity to correct and improve what they know. And just telling them that, like, this isn't the 2000s anymore. This isn't the 2000s anymore. Like, there's a lot of good stuff that has happened. So check it out. Thanks. So I'll shut up now.